Hello, this is Lisbeth Ryan, the Communications Coordinator here at HIU.
I had the opportunity to interview Heather Brubaker. She is a Jewish student in our Master's in Chaplaincy Program who transitioned to chaplaincy after being a high school English teacher for 15 years. Last summer, she worked as an educational consultant for the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation, helping them develop a fellowship program for American teachers who do a fully funded study trip to the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum in Poland. The teachers who participate in this program will return to do supported curriculum development in their schools and communities.
Right. Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's so nice to be here with you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity that you are giving us to know about your experience. I want to ask you, what made you want to be a chaplain after being a teacher for 15 years?
Oh, okay. Well, it's a long story, but the short version of it is that I was a high school English teacher for 15 years and had always really loved teaching and still do, but had kind of gotten to a point where I felt like I was stagnating a little bit in terms of my career as a teacher, and then I had a series of personal events, as I've often heard from many of my classmates too, that kind of precipitated a change in priorities and in what I wanted to do. And there was more than one thing, but one of those things is that my younger daughter was diagnosed with a rare bone marrow disorder. And in the experience of that and of receiving care from a chaplain, and also really entering what Susan Sontag calls the kingdom of the ill, sort of, where that is a part of your life view, it made me realize that there was just so much opportunity to serve in that space.
Yes.
And that the things that I still really loved about teaching were really accompanying students and families through moments of change and transition in their lives. And that becoming a chaplain just moved that activity to kind of the center of what I would be doing, rather than something I was doing in like the 10-minute break between classes, So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that sounds beautiful. It's really inspiring, your story. So how have your experience as a student of our chaplaincy program has been so far?
I mean, it's just been a delight. It is an incredible opportunity, having been at the front of the classroom for so many years, to be back in the student's role and to be in a little bit more of like a receptive position, and to be also really expanding my sense of who I am, of what my Judaism is, of the types of care that I can offer, and also just learning so much from my incredible classmates who all come to this work with such a wonderful diversity of experience and of thought and of tradition.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Tell us a little more about this fellowship program for American teachers that you participated on in Poland.
Sure. So last summer, I got an invitation to join the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation and to do some work with them. And it's the American branch of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum, which is in Poland. And they were forming a teacher advisory group because one of their new strategic goals was to expand opportunities for students in the United States to learn about the Holocaust and to really engage deeply, not just with the Holocaust as a whole, but also with Auschwitz and the Auschwitz Museum specifically. And that was precipitated by a study that had come out that actually got a lot of news when it came out a couple years ago, that fewer than half of Gen Z and millennial Americans even knew what Auschwitz was. And the sense that we're at this kind of tipping point in work around the Holocaust, where the last survivors are beginning to pass away.
Yes.
And we no longer have that living record of what happened, right? And so I think there's this kind of reckoning about how do we continue to keep the memory of what happened in the Holocaust alive and feeling relevant and fresh. And especially in this moment of resurgent anti-Semitism, both in the United States and around the world, if there's just a sense of urgency, right? That this is something that we need to figure out now. So the ABMF started thinking about how to really connect American teachers and students with the museum and with the sort of lived experience of that place, and with the sort of responsibility for remembering what happened there. So last summer, I worked with a group of teachers to help the directors of the ABMF conceptualize this fellowship, where teachers from the United States travel to Poland on a fully funded learning trip. And they participate in a series of learning opportunities before going on the trip. And then afterwards are provided with curricular support, local connection, a cohort of teachers who are also developing curriculum around the Holocaust and teaching it in their schools, with the idea that these teachers become kind of ambassadors of memory, right? That they have this special experience and responsibility from their lived experience of visiting the camp that they can transmit to their students.
Yeah, so brilliant. I mean, I think it's great that you guys are sharing it to younger generations, and reach and keep passing the story, because it's actually something very important in the history of humanity. So I'm glad to hear about this. When I heard your story, I was like, well, I have to share it. It's really impressive, and I think it's brilliant.
Thank you,
So
Elizabeth. I feel so lucky to be a part of the team that is working on this.
Yes. And then how, so you're going to be going there in July, right?
Yeah. So I just found out a few weeks ago that I am going to be included in the first group of fellows. So they invited the teachers who worked in that first teacher advisory group to be in the first group of fellows who are traveling to Poland. And it's a week-long trip, some of which is spent in Warsaw and in Krakow, and then at the camp working with museum educators at Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I am just so thrilled on so many levels. To be have been part of kind of conceiving of this, or part of the growth of this fellowship, and then get to actually participate in it is extraordinary.
Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah, and it's also hugely meaningful for me because my maternal grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and my grandmother's parents, so my maternal great-grandparents were killed in Auschwitz during World War II. And I have not been to Auschwitz-Birkenau. I have been to a couple other camps, but I have not been there. And there is, I just feel so honored to be able to go and to just experience the place and to honor their memory and their experiences through the visit, but also to be going for the first time with this incredible sense of purpose and with this really deep sense that we are continuing to honor their legacy. That just feels so profound to me.
Yeah, I can see that. You have a connection. If I was you, I would probably feel the same way, so excited for this meaningful experience. So what are some experiences and skills that you have developed as a chaplaincy student that will walk you through this experience of the Birkenau Auschwitz program in Poland?
Yeah, I mean, so many. So, I mean, on a personal level, right, given how closely tied I am to the history the really horrific history of that place, there is just the need, I imagine, to dig really deep spiritually, right? To be able to sort of stand in a place that holds so much horror and so much pain, and to be able to stand in that place and take in the truth of it and digest it, and to not be overwhelmed by it, right? And I think that part of what we are learning as chaplains is that skill, right? How do you find your footing in a place that's on fire, right? Or in a moment that is on fire, right? Where you are surrounded by suffering. And in this case, it's historical suffering, right? And we talk a lot in class about, if you're in the hospital with someone, right, who is experiencing this incredible moment of disorientation or physical or emotional anguish, right? How do you continue to stand in that place? How do you find the strength for that? So I think there's that piece of it, right? Just for my own self. But then there is also this opportunity that I'm really excited about and talking to the program directors about, which is that, when you go to a place like Auschwitz-Birkenau, it's unlike other travel experiences, right? Even if you're learning about history, I mean, it is a place that requires a lot of processing, right?
Yes.
And a lot of kind of recentering when you are immersed in that. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to also invite some of my fellows in the cohort into some of that, and potentially to do some group processing with them, with some of the different methodologies that we've discussed in the chaplaincy class. Because I think Auschwitz-Birkenau presents a profound spiritual challenge. We talk a lot about in the chaplaincy program, like theodicy, right? The question of how do we make sense of the existence of evil in the world? How do we respond to suffering? And there's a way in which, Auschwitz-Birkenau is like a concentration of that question to its most extreme level, right? How do we engage with this level of evil, this level of destruction, this level of violence? And then how do we transmit that in a way that is both responsible to what happened, but also responsible to the emotional lives of the students that we are working with. And all of that, I think, in some ways is a spiritual question. So I'm really excited to kind of navigate some of those questions with the other teachers that I'm on the trip with.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're participating in our chaplaincy program. You definitely have skills and you're working on them to become a chaplain and make a change on every person that passed through your life. That's really amazing. And thank you so much for sharing this story. It's just really beautiful. I hope it gets spread and, people know about everything that you need to convey in this forum. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Lisbeth. I'm delighted to share the story with you and also come back with updates once I've actually been on the trip.